Welcome to the podcast where we take a deep dive into the stories behind construction business leaders. We will share how they got started, how they found success, and the lessons learned along the way. I'm your host, Eric Fortenberry. Welcome to Builder Stories. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back. I am excited to be here with Brandon Fuchs from Elite Builder Society. Welcome, Brandon.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
Yeah, so, again, you and I have known each other for a good little while here. I know you've had some pretty interesting background and been a builder yourself in a couple different ventures. You've now got a coaching group here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, how did you first become an entrepreneur? What were some of your first ventures? And, ultimately, how did you create the current company?
Oh, I appreciate this, Eric. I'm super excited to dig into this. And yeah, you and I have been supporting each other from a distance, obviously, me being up in Canada, you being in Texas there. But the entrepreneurial spirit, I think, really shines when you find two, visionaries. I think we're both visionaries, and, we're battling to grow our businesses. And we've been very, you've been very supportive with a lot of things that we're doing and there to answer some questions. So I just want to thank you for your time and energy that you've always shared with us. And that means a lot. It's a great question. How did everybody get to where we are? And I've had you on my podcast, and we dug into that a little bit with you. And for me, I feel like I've always been an entrepreneur. I remember in grade 8, grade 9, I really wanted to make some extra cash. I was raised by a single mother, and I really wanted to make some extra cash to kind of just live a little bit more of a unique life, I guess, just like every young teenager. And so I was surrounded. I didn't have a father in my life as well, but my friends' fathers were big influences in my life, including my uncles and my grandfather and whatnot. And so I remember around grade 9, maybe grade 8, I built a wagon that I could yard around a lawnmower mowing grass. I think this is maybe how every contractor starts out. They start cutting grass or shoveling driveways. And oddly enough, I was making like $400 or $500 a month, which was a lot back then. That was a long time ago. It was a lot back then. And really just, I don't really recall too much of that. I just remember how exciting it was. Similar to starting a business. I actually was just on a coaching call with one of my contractors, and I asked him today, I said, "Hey man, like what was it like for you when you first started your business?" He's like, "Oh, I created the card and I was super excited to create the logo." And so that first initial excitement really, was inside me when I was younger. And then I progressed, through lots of different industries. I became an industrial carpenter for a large portion of my initial career. Became a superintendent at a very young age. Didn't really get the respect from the older generation because I was so young. A superintendent at 2021 is probably, it was complicated at that point. But I was really inspired with the industry. I really felt like I could deliver some value. I didn't like working, on the road so much. And so then I went on my own and I started my first business, and I had no idea what I was doing. Um, and so that's how I got to today. There's a whole journey inside of that, but we can dig into that for sure on this call.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm curious, what would you say, like starting that first business and like just, as a contractor, what did you see, the biggest challenges were that you now probably see in others as you're helping them?
Yeah, well, I mean, my first business was a small remodeling company. I partnered with a friend of mine. Don't ever go into business with a friend of yours. Start a business, but that's how it worked out. And we're still friends. There's no bad blood or anything, but it's different. Everybody has a different dynamic. But I left a high-paying career as an industrial carpenter superintendent, and shifted to a remodeling contractor. So the shift was significant. Trying to grow a family, young family. And I'm not going to lie, it was horrific for about 8 years. Horrific. I had no idea really how to convert clients. I had no idea how to manage the business. I knew I really liked doing it, but I didn't know what I was doing. And so I had small mentors in my life, friends, other friends, families that owned businesses, but then none of them owned my business. None of them owned my construction business. They owned other businesses that were very different, and so the way they generated clients was very different. The way they managed their business was very different. So I was getting all this input from everyone under the sun. My friends, uncles, aunts, sisters, brother was this, that, and the other, and unfortunately, all the information I was getting was like second and third hand to what I actually needed. And so, for the first portion of this journey, it was absolutely miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people, they don't realize how difficult it really is to start a business from scratch, and the true risk. I think a lot of times people just sort of see the entrepreneur, see the business owners, and they kind of forget that it took a lot of grinding and several years of, maybe not even making any money to actually get to the point where the business shows well. And that's something that I think people don't often, that they don't understand going in, that, like, when you choose to be that entrepreneur, start your own thing, like, you're responsible for everything, and,
Yeah.
and so I'm curious, like, you know, like, what did you do from, like, a marketing standpoint? Because, again, a lot of times people from the trades, they don't understand the importance of investing in marketing and SEO, and how you got to get leads to find you. And, like, how did you get found early on?
Well, so when I started my business, it was over 2 decades ago. So I've been in the industry for nearly 2 decades ago, my first business. So I've been in the industry for a long time. SEO and these forms of marketing, those weren't a thing, right? Everyone was like billboards, phone book, and high expensive, unmeasurable advertising. It was very hard to market your business because you were always manipulated by agencies, and so you were super confused with what you had to do. And so I was always resistant to do all of that stuff because I couldn't afford it because we weren't making enough money to actually invest in truly marketing your business. And marketing at that time, with these agencies was significant.
Yeah.
Whereas now, the gift that we all have with the access to the internet, and all we have to literally do is take action, and implement, a series of components to get visibility. And whereas before it was unmeasurable visibility, there was no data that was truly being able to be collected. So what I did for the first 5 years is literally just, I mean, I just woke up and dealt with whatever the hell I could in that moment. I would put myself on, there was like Kijiji, Craigslist, I think was a similar thing. And just put myself out there. I did a lot of the tactics that we teach contractors today, that are very, very different and unique, because when I started my business, you really had to be unique and different to get visibility because there wasn't really any social platforms to get visibility. It was all organic. It was a slow growth um, marketing system.
What do you think that, like, you learned that like, you now implement when coaching others? Like, what do you think some of the biggest, takeaways were from running your own construction business, and, like, being in the field and the trades and doing the work that you think is now really translated well to helping position you to be a better coach for those?
Well, I think the first thing is that I recognized that I needed a coach. Like literally, like my son is 18, going to be getting into welding. I think I might have mentioned to you a little bit. I talk about it quite a bit. I mean, my kids are everything to me, and coming from somebody who wasn't raised by a father, it's really important for me to dig into my kids and give them that direction. But I also am their father. And so I encourage my son every day. I'm like, hey, go think about, a type of coach that you could find that would really help you kind of, position your life. And I think that was one of the things that I didn't do or have, and I don't even know if it was a thing back then. You have all these mentors in your life, and you think that that's good enough, but again, it's like second and third hand information that isn't specific to what you're trying to do. If I tried to coach my son on how to become a welder, I would fail at being a coach for him. And so I think that's the number one thing that I think everybody needs. And I will encourage my kids and the people that are very close to me to continue to invest in finding really good mentorship to run alongside them in whatever direction they're looking to run.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's you can spend a whole lot of time learning the lessons the hard way, or you can tap into someone's experience, decades worth of, been there, done that, has seen others try the same thing, seen what's worked, seen what's failed. I think that people often don't realize that they can, save themselves a lot of time and headache, for a fairly nominal expense to hire a coach versus having to go figure it out the hard way.
Yeah, the conversion is wild. Like I'm seeing it, firsthand. I've been coaching contractors for 2 years now, full time. I have one guy that I was talking to again earlier today, and you know, um, he started out as uh, he had a drug and alcohol problem 3 years ago. Okay, then found faith in his first year, and then in his 2 years ago started a business. Met me a year and like 2 months ago. He now has 6 guys. He's an electrical contractor. So I don't just coach remodelers, coach all kinds of subcontractors and general contractors, builders, etc. Anybody really in business development in construction. And so this individual has now 6 guys, 2 trucks. He's broken 1 million, crushed 1 million in revenue in his second year of business. And the saying is where most businesses fail within first to 5 years. I bet you by the time he hits 5 years, he'll have exceeded his competitors all around him. Um, but what they've been able to complete within 10 to 20 years. And it's only because he shows up every day. He asks questions every day, and he always takes action. And I think that's another thing that's so important that I've seen in the transformation with the things that we've learned is that like the number one thing is just literally take action and do something, even if it's
Yeah.
just a little bit of something. Take action with what you're comfortable with.
So if you're a smaller business earlier on, you want to grow though, where do you think they should invest first? I mean, is it in people? Is it in systems and processes? Is it in marketing? Like how do you help guide people where to invest first?
So I have another gentleman that I'm working with. He literally just started. He opened a bank account, and I actually just started another guy today that doesn't have his builder's license yet, and he's going to be starting his business. And so, the strategy that I would implement if I was a small remodeling contractor or service based contractor is the first thing I would do is get really good at what I'm doing. I would get really good at delivering a service to solve a problem for a client. If you can solve a problem for a client, you can stack those wins on top of each other every day, right? If you don't have the skills and abilities to actually do the work, you're gonna struggle to force that down people's throats. But if you're really good at what you do and you can solve a true problem that exists in any industry, including mine, and solve a problem, then people will line up for that solution. And so that would be the first thing that I would focus on. The second thing that I would consider doing is getting visibility. Get consistent on investing in posting content on social. It's free and you can suck at it and it can still produce a result. All you got to do is just be consistent and post content. It's uncomfortable. I remember my first video, I was wearing this hideous blue shirt and I was in my office and I was like, oh, I'm going to do a vlog or something. And this is like 16 years ago. I think I just signed up for Facebook a couple, whatever, weeks or months before that, but super uncomfortable. People made fun of me. I didn't give a shit. You know what I mean? I was growing my business. It didn't make sense, but it made sense. I knew I needed to do something. And so today in today's world, it's so accessible for you to
Yeah.
be able to literally just pull out your phone, right? And record yourself talking about what you're really good at, the problem that you're really good at solving for people, and just post it. And people will gain traction off of that. And then there's a bunch of other shit that you have to implement after that. But those are the two things, then, in my opinion, that you need to do for the to
Yeah.
start any business.
No, that's awesome. And it's so interesting how like, I talk to people all the time and they realize that like video is so valuable this day and age, but then when you ask them, well, are you recording, you know, video testimonials from your customers? Are you trying to capture content about the build and how it went? And it's like, well, I don't really like getting behind the camera or it's like like I mean, you just told me you recognize it was like one of the most important things yet like they're not doing it. And like,
Mhm,
so how do you help coach those people who just have that fear of just putting themselves out there truly? Because you're absolutely right. Like, content this day and age, like content is king, video is king. Like, you got to just show who you are, be
mhm.
yourself. But like, so many people still fear that.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to talk about this same gentleman that started his business 3 years ago, right? And so today, he currently has 135 five-star Google reviews. 2 years into
Nice.
business, he doesn't get a bunch of video testimonials; those are great. But he's also a service contractor, so he gets lots of reps, right? But he has 135 Google reviews, and he's perfected his sales process. Um, and so what I would say to people is that, when they complain about things, there's a connection back to that. When they complain about the things that aren't working for them, that they complain, I don't want to bug this person, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. One of the educators inside our community about a year ago did a presentation on consistency and content, and he said, I'm going to give you a tool to use to give yourself motivation. And so, Eric, I know you like to travel, with your family and do things with your family. If you complain to me about, like, and I'm not coaching you by any means, but if you complain to me about, all these things that are hard and unsuccess, challenging and create resistance, I would say, well, Eric, what's one thing that you would really like to do with your family in the next, like, couple months? And you would say probably go on one of these, these trips, because I know that, traveling with your family is really near and dear to you. And maybe there's something that's really specific that your kids want to do or your wife wants to do. And yeah, I would say, Eric, you know what? Why don't you go tell them that you're too lazy to actually do the things necessary to give them that special adventure? Because that's literally what it's connected to. It's like, if you just did the work, you can give your family the dreams that they want. And it's the disconnect of you saying to myself, oh, I don't want to do this. Okay. So every time I say I don't want to do this, I'm going to go talk to my family and say, sorry, guys, I didn't want to do it today. I didn't want to do it today. And I think, like, that's what I would tell them. Unfortunately, there is a stigma in this industry where it's either ego or laziness. And ego is always in the way of somebody growing their business. They always say, oh, I'm doing great. I've got this going on. I'm doing this. And it's like, okay, cool. Let's come back to you in 12 months. Because I guarantee you, 12 months of working with, a coach or a mentor or a community would have significantly changed your trajectory. And just being nudged like that, being told, hey, like, go tell your family that you're willing to not do the work today to give them that gift. And what I want to say is, like, that other individual, the electrical contractor that's got those Google reviews, it's non-negotiable. Like, the review is a non-negotiable because he has legacy that he's building, and he understands that the legacy is connected to the work that he has to do, right?
Wow.
And so it comes down to just stopping saying that you're good enough and understanding that everything can be always better. I understand every day that I can always be better at what I'm doing. And so I surround myself with people and resources to try to improve myself every day. And I think everybody needs to do that.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I'm curious, like, when do you think the right time is for people to start thinking about hiring a team, and who should they think about? Who is that first hire? Those first couple people, like, because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs probably they try to go farther with fewer people than if they were to just take the time to really build out and try to plan like a model, like to understand like when can we afford to hire people because I see so many people that like burn themselves out
Mhm.
trying to keep putting on every hat, trying to do everything themselves, trying to sell the job, run the job, collect. Like, when do you advise people to start thinking about building a team around them?
Well, I think you have to identify what your superpower is. So really understand what you're good at. Eric, you know what you're good at. I know what I'm good at. And I always offload everything I'm not good at to somebody else immediately, as fast as humanly possible, actually, because the longer I hold on to doing something continuously over and over again that I'm not good at is literally the definition of insanity. Like, you're just going to continue to fail miserably because you're trying to force something into existence that you're just not good at. So it really depends on the individual, and it also really depends on the business. If you're a remodeling contractor, I really love outsourcing as much as possible to professionals. It's almost like building, you're in Texas, and I don't know the frequency of the Cowboys winning, the Super Bowl or anything like that. I'm not trying to throw shade or anything, but when you're building a winning Super Bowl team, just like you're building a winning team with JobTread. um, it's really important that you identify, who's the best quarterback, who's the best, coach, who's the best offensive coach, defensive coach, etc. And you have to identify these pillars, right? And if you're a person in that team, you have to identify who you are in that mix, first and foremost. And that is also part of ego. You have to drop your ego a little bit and understand, where do I fit in this whole business? And so it really depends on the type of business, but a remodeling business, outsource as much as possible. Build a winning Super Bowl team, right? Slowly but surely, one person at a time. I would bring my number two, somebody that gives me a little bit more of my freedom back, a little helper that's maybe a little bit more advanced, carries a little bit of a skill, getting me more freedom so I can go look at more work, so that I can do more of the things that actually push the business forward. If I was a service-based contractor, I would probably do the same thing, where I would try to, onboard a couple guys that get me more time to build my business. And then once you get to a point where your business is flowing, right, incorporating at any point you're capable financially of incorporating a product like JobTread is fundamental, because it's just organizes your life. It organizes the chaos. So that would be probably one of the first things that I would look at, if you're capable of doing that. But employee wise, get a number one, number two, drag them along, and then you can start looking at those elements that you want to incorporate into your business. A CPA, a marketing, assistant, the people that do other things that you're maybe not capable of doing.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's 100%. I mean, you got to figure out, what do you want to do every single day? What are you great at? Put yourself in that seat, and then surround yourself by people who are better at everything else that needs to get done. It's how you build a great team. What would you say though, when you look at different size businesses, like, what do you think, like, the biggest differences are between, a company that, it's stuck at like 500K a year versus someone who's scaling past, 5 million a year? Like, what do you see the biggest differences between those guys?
Well, action always is always action. On the lower guy, the fear and action. They're afraid to make decisions, and they're indecisive, and they sit there and look at the problem for too long, and then by the time they could have made the decision, the solution's already changed, or the problem's already changed. And so a lot of those smaller guys just get in their own way all the time. Like, I talk to so many of them so frequently, and it drives me nuts, because they literally have solutions in front of them each and every day that, we put in front of them, and they digest it in a way that it's like, oh, cool, I understand this, but I'm not going to take action on it. And so I think that's the biggest problem with the $500,000 contractor. The $5 million contractor, maybe has lucked out and got to that point, right? Based on skill, right? Solves a problem, really good at what he does, stacking wins, got some projects, acquired some great clients, lucked out, took a couple photos, got some great content, and now maybe still has a bit of an ego, but doesn't have the right systems and doesn't have the right people in place to actually help them grow your business. You have to, at some point, that individual, the same one that started his business 3 years ago, just onboarded his own. It's kind of like we have he's actually a job tread marketplace partner as well. He's a CPA and a CEPA, but he also acts as kind of a CFO. And so there's so much data with the service work that he's doing, that when we have that data, we can make great decisions. So 3 years into business, he's incorporated that. I think guys that are 5 years, or 10 years into business doing $5 million are missing those key decision people that help them really make like fundamental decisions on, like, what is the next move with our business based on our financial health.
Yeah. No, that's I mean, I think you pretty much nailed it to a T with, the business that I took over and ran, back in 2018 when I built the first version of JobTread. I mean, they were, about 5 years in, a little bit older, had around 10 employees. They're great at, the construction, but like the problem started to happen where they needed to scale the team, and they didn't have the right leadership in place. They needed to scale the systems and the processes. They didn't have those in place either. And it's like, that's where things start to break down when you try to go and you keep scaling, but you're not like improving and changing and making sure that you've got the right people, the right systems in place. Like it really can make all the difference in the world. And what takes, what it takes to get from 500,000 to a million to 5 million to 10, like it's a whole different set of challenges at each stage. And I think a lot of people do end up at some point kind of just accepting the status quo, and they're just they get complacent and they don't think like,
Yeah.
man, I made it to this point, like obviously I know what I'm doing, but it's like, well, if you want to get to the next level, like you got to keep that growth mindset, and you got to keep that that open mentality of like, hey, maybe there's something I need to change, or maybe there's a way I can do better, maybe there's a way our team can do better. Like so many times I think people struggle with that like continual improvement mindset that that can ultimately be your detriment.
Yeah, I think, like, you see how you have so much energy. The first time you were on a call with us a while ago, you just came with so much energy. And I loved it. I was like, I did not expect that from, like a software. I didn't expect energy, like that. And I think like contractors struggle sometimes, business owners struggle sometime with keeping that same fueled energy.
Yeah.
You have to come every day like your life depends on it, like your family, whatever your legacy is, and you have to understand that, you have to be comfortable going to tell them that I'm not willing to do what needs to be done. Because growth, if you're not growing your business, you're drowning. Like you have got to be growing each and every day, because if you're not, somebody is coming to take that away from you, because growth is happening in other places, right? And so like a lot of people need to find out whatever, is going to fuel them to move forward, to really grow, and find that thirst. Otherwise, if it doesn't exist, they're just going to fail.
Yeah.
I was
So what
actually
do you
I was going to say, I was doing a little bit of market research, and I mean, this is collective data on about 500 people. Just under 40% of the businesses that I connected with that were open for about 5 years failed. They were all
man?
out of business. 40%, all across North America, 40% of businesses. And I guarantee you what is connected to that is lack of decision making, indecisive, no energy, and just fear and imposter syndrome. Like those elements I think are all connected to somebody failing. And if you're listening to this and you're a remodeling contractor, um, don't be afraid. Literally, don't be afraid. There's so much available to us to be successful that literally all you have to do is just take action and be uncomfortable. And I promise you, you'll see a change. I don't know, Eric, if you're a big book reader, I'm assuming you are in some way, shape, or form. But my favorite book of all time is Atomic Habits.
Mm.
And a 1% increase every day. That's what the book is about. A 1% increase every day, stacked and compounded, across the entire year, is a significant amount of growth every year. But staying in the same place each and every day, asking for something different, is insanity.
So what do you tell the guy who, he's been at it for a while, but he's just like totally burned out. Like he's lost that fire in him. He's not doing what he needs to do. Like, I mean, he's already got his head hung between his legs. Like what do you tell that guy to try to light his fire again?
I mean, one of the guys that John Job tread not that long ago, Chad. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He has come to one of the builder boot camps. I think that's what they're called. He's come to one of the boot camps. He was one of those guys, and he's 20 years in the industry, and I've been working with him for over a year and a half now, and he was depressed, like honestly, like completely miserably depressed, living in a small community, internalized a lot of the tasks himself, and inconsistency with workflow, inconsistency with client intake, inconsistency with, execution, miserable. His wife also was going through some, severe health situations, and so it focused a lot of their attention. He's got a family, he's got kids. He's like a normal person. We all deal with normal things, and the unfortunate part is we also a lot of times are sometimes running a business parallel to our life, And we always say that our business takes a back seat to our life, but it can't, because it provides one with the other. You can't live one without the other. And so what I would say to the guy who's, got his head between his legs and he's done, he's checked out, find someone that will listen to you and be comfortable sharing the uncomfortable shit. Chad and I had um like pretty pretty deep conversations. We both got emotional a lot of times. And it was because, I knew he was greater for something different. Chad just celebrated his 25th anniversary with his wife. They went on a cruise. And they've never been able to afford that. Never. And I get emotional about it because there are so many people that are just like Chad that are so indecisive that they're afraid of just something different. Chad stepped into using job tread, best thing he ever did. Chad stepped into subcontracting work to other professionals, best thing he ever did. Chad started implementing systems into his business, changed everything. He doesn't even need to market because he's the only guy that everybody knows already, because he's in a small community. And so his marketing doesn't even need to happen because he's already so well known. So all he had to do was deliver a better product
That's
and be
awesome.
consistent. And he just got to celebrate a cruise with his wife on their 25th anniversary.
That's awesome, man. And it's got to be those moments, those stories that like they really touch you in a special way to like know that like you really helped somebody to get
Yeah.
out of that rut, get back on top, like get everything going because like we all have the potential to be wildly successful. The question is like, are we doing the things that we need to do to unlock that potential, right? And like I think sometimes people need, that opportunity to just have those real conversations with someone else. Like, I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they feel like they're alone at the top and they feel like nobody around them understands because they're in this different position. It's like, man, like that's not the case at all. Like everybody, is all going through that same challenge, those same ups and downs. Like it's just part of being a business leader is that, yeah, you do shoulder a lot more than a lot of the people around you, but like there's so many people that would be happy, they'd happily hop on a call, lend an ear, like be able to have that real conversation. But the people who don't, and they just keep it all in and they hold it in, like, man, it's like you're carrying so much extra baggage that you don't need to. And I think finding a community of people, finding a coach, finding somebody who you can work with to like be able to have that shed all of that crap, like
Mhm.
it can just like totally life change you.
Yeah. When I started my initial business, for that, 5-year span where I was, in the shit, so to speak, I would wake up at 3 in the morning consistently. My body even today is like I don't know what is going on, but like I am amped up and ready to go at the earliest time of the day, and I continue to go throughout the entire day, and then all of a sudden I just crash. Um, and so something was going on. I was very stressed out, struggling, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to market, not knowing anything, like literally not knowing anything. And I would wake up on like repeat 3 o'clock in the morning and puke. Um,
Huh.
Repeat for like years. I remember it was like disgusting. And I would flush the toilet. I would, run the water. I would turn the fan on. I'd make as much noise as possible to hide it. And would I have opened up to somebody? I don't know. But I know that, they talk a lot about, mental health and that kind of stuff. I was never in a dark, you know, destructive um spiraling space. I was just in a space of unknown with what needed to be done, and I just really needed something. And really that's like what drives me. Like I could start a business in construction tomorrow and be great at it again. And my reason for not doing that is because I want to be able to spend time with my family the way I want to. I want to be in control of that with my time, but I also want to give the younger version of myself a relief from that shit that I went through, because I think I owe it to the future people that have gone through or are going through dark shit, to give them a place that they can speak, but they have to be the one to start the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Man, I feel like I talk to a lot of people who when you start uncovering like what is kind of one of the main things that's like leading them into this like burnout role is like when they're not charging enough for their work and they don't understand their own value. They don't know how to price their jobs. They're making up numbers. Like, how do you go about helping them understand like their true worth and like helping them like figure out how to price for their job so that they can make the money that they need to be earning to feel like they're able to live that life. What are
Well,
you guys doing towards that?
so I think there's a few different points here, and I might this might be like controversial in my opinion, but I believe that a client um, has a payment threshold. There is a value of service. JobTread has a value at what it's worth on the market, right? And as it progresses and gets better, the market changes. The value of that product changes. And so our service is a form of a commodity. And so depending on what the industry value is, will dictate how much you're worth. And so if you're trying to service something, you have to understand that there's a price that's too much that the client won't use you. And there's a price
Yeah.
that's too low where you'll actually lose money. And so how do you price this? Well, first you have to understand and you have to research your competitors um, as thoroughly as possible, and you have to really understand what the industry value is and understand that and comprehend how that is all being formulated and then reverse engineer how you can create profit within it. I think JobTread really solves a lot of the problems where people are trying to figure out like, how do I charge? What do I charge? How do I make sure I'm profitable? I mean, it gives you the data to visibly see whether or not it worked or didn't work on that job, and so I think the biggest thing is like, you have to really understand and learn from your client first before you start putting a value on your time. My girlfriend is she, uh, does hairstylist, and so she's probably one of the top hairstylists in North America, potentially in the world. She just won a huge award, and so she got top blonde coloring for all of like 44 countries.
Wow.
And so her rate is different than the person that's just starting. And the reason is because she has given herself the authority to own that space, right? And so when you start out, can you command that authority? Absolutely not. Because the people that earn or own that space will stomp on you. And so you will lose opportunity. But I think it's really important for you to understand what the value of the service is so that you can reverse engineer what your worth is in comparison to what the value is.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and I like the notion of like leveraging the data. Let the data help you
Hmm.
understand, are you pricing this correctly? But again, a lot of people they're like, well, they don't want to do the job costing, and they come up with all these reasons. I don't have the time, I don't know how, I don't have the system. Like, I always see these reasons why people don't go take the time to actually enter their cost and know, did we make money on this job?
Hmm.
But, like, I don't see how you can operate without doing that. So how do you, like, coach these people and encourage them to actually take the time to do that?
I mean, I don't want to scare anyone away. Like if you're thinking about working with me, I don't want to scare you away. I am a big, scary guy. But I'm also going to call you out on your shit all the time. We all have excuses. And the thing is, like, even if we get even if we get close to a goal, an audacious goal, right? It's still a win. We do not have to perfectly execute everything. We just have to start implementing something over time. That's why I like that book so much, because a small amount of progression, will allow you to become better. So how do I help them? I literally tell them, I was like, how do we make decisions without knowing the health of your business? How do we make decisions without knowing how much money is coming in, where it's coming from, what it's coming from? You can't. You're literally blind and you're setting yourself up for failure. And so again, you go tell your family, because those are generally the people that we're all fighting for. Go tell your family you're too lazy to do what actually needs to be done in order to actually grow this. You know, Unfortunately, as the CEO, because we all want to be CEOs, right? when we start our business. Unfortunately, as a CEO, you're probably going to work a lot more than you ever thought you were going to work. And connected to that work is doing things like this, gathering data and making decisions. And that's why it's so important. I love what I really love about JobTread is that you got so many resources available to help them, and other products out there are just, here's the product, pay me your bill, and figure it out on your own. And there's somebody in India that's answering the phone that doesn't actually know the product at all or know your business, doesn't even know who you are. And they just started last week, and so they can't help you solve anything. Whereas JobTread actually has people, that actually pick up the phone. And, when I was in my construction business, I hired a big company to do a job for me. I was subcontracted a big company to do a job for me. I didn't know who the owner was. I didn't know anyone. It was just a big company. And so when shit didn't go the right way, I had nobody to call. I had nobody to like say, hey man, like what's going on? I would call a manager who just started last week, didn't care. I would call his manager, didn't care. And you just go through the motions. And so I think like, you know, having the resources that JobTread has is really like a cheat code to really figuring this shit out much faster.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that kind of goes back to your point why you do what you do is same thing for us. Like we care, we
Mhm.
genuinely care. Like at the end of the day, like, this is a platform that we have created to try to help make an impact on as many people as we possibly can. I'm trying to give back to others, inspire them, motivate them, give them the tools, the training, the resources that they need to be successful because I've already had my success. I built and sold my first company and like, I know how great it can be, but it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of people around you. And, I think that goes to show that like when you're choosing your partners, you're choosing your coach, you're choosing your marketing agency, you're choosing your bookkeeper, like, you're choosing your software company, like you got to find people that care and make
Yeah.
sure that they genuinely want to know you. They want to know your story. They want to be involved in helping you win. Because at the end of the day, like if somebody doesn't care and they're just there to collect some check, like who are you to them? What is their real purpose? Like other than they're going to show up, clock in and out, and they just want to make sure their company's getting paid. Like, when you find the people who care, they're the ones that will go above and beyond for you. They will bend over backwards for you. Those are the people that you can call, late at night, early in the morning, on the weekend, when you're in a pinch, like, that you've got the support of the people around you, but like, you got to build that right team. You got
Mhm.
to find those right people. You got to vet them, and so I think like that's where again, like having somebody who understands that and can help coach you in the right direction to find those right people, like, I mean, that can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah. No, it's crazy, and you and I also recognized this about you early on. You didn't even know who I was, and we were still communicating, after hours and Messenger and discussing, different things, and that's really what it comes down to. I worked as a contractor. One of the subcontractors that I worked with had a large plumbing company, and they managed. I think their burn rate was like close to $1 million a month. Crazy, right? Hundreds of employees. I always felt like I was his only customer every time. And it does come down to that personal connection. That connection with that individual reshaped my mindset on how I deal with relationships with people, whether it's clients, subs, my family. Everything has shifted. I know you have the same mentality, and even with your previous business that you exited out of, it was focused on building a community, and a community is built off of small personal relationships stacked on top of each other over and over and over again. And that's really how you build, a Super Bowl winning team.
Yeah. When you think about helping people, build their team, like how much do you go into like really helping them like define like what is their mission, their vision? Like what are they doing? Why are they doing it? Where are they going? Like how much does that come into play?
I think we have a pretty unique process in our program, and so we've scaled it to give people like incredible accessibility. So it's only $49 a month to be a part of our community, which gets them access to a bunch of group calls. Currently, we're running a sales call on Monday and a Q&A on Friday. Literally, you can just ask questions. I mean, I don't know what kind of coaching program you have access to that is only $49 a month. That gives you that ability. And then in addition to that, we've got people like yourself and other resource professionals that are there to help support you. And when you're ready to act, you move forward into a one-on-one service. My one-on-one service includes, we have a couple other coaches that are actually starting as well, Eric, in January. So it won't just be me. I've got a few other guys that are well decorated joining us as well. But we find out exactly where you are. So we spend probably a month just dissecting you and your business, and really understanding, like, what are all the blind spots, what are all the things that you're missing out on, and what is your weakness. And then through our program, we also then build a strategy. We help you build a framework, and it's enough to get you to the next phase, which is implementation. Right? We are not trying to create perfection from day one. We are trying to understand, we are trying to create a plan, and we are trying to implement. We break the problem, we continue to fix it. We just continue to break. So the majority of our program, after we get through the understanding and the strategy, is implementation. How many times have you had to change your strategy with JobTread in the last 30 days? You can't just write a business plan on one day and then wake up and be like, okay, let's go to chapter two. Okay, that's what we're going to be doing today. No, it's totally different. Every day is problem solving and pivoting and moving forward in a different direction. And the guys who win are the ones that can make decisions faster.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, what's the like if you had to if as there have you ever heard, like, what's like the worst advice that you've heard someone has given to a contractor?
I mean, the worst advice is coming from somebody, and don't take offense to this. There's all kinds of other professionals out there that do all kinds of things. You started JobTread because you came from a situation of that forced you to experience a part of a business, which allowed you to dissect and understand and execute solutions to problems that existed. And so you are capable of building this business. You are capable of helping other contractors grow because in my opinion, you've earned that position. I think the worst advice that somebody can get is from somebody that doesn't know your industry, that has never lived in that industry.
Yeah.
Like, would you get accounting advice from somebody that's never worked with a contractor? And I did so many times because my aunt's uncle's friend's sister's brother was an accountant, so I have to trust them. And I think the worst advice you can get is from somebody that you're trying to um, trust, that doesn't earn that position. And so really be cautious with who you're gathering information from, but not too cautious that you're not willing to take action, but cautious enough to understand, does this person, or has this person lived my life, or have they helped other people that are living my exact life right now today? And if the answer is yes, then they're probably a person that has results that can help you get somewhere. I think that you can also outlive certain people. Like, I've had coaches in my life since the time that I decided that, I thought that I should probably bring in somebody, and I've outlived them. And I think the reason I outlived them was because they weren't focused on the individual connection to make me feel like I was actually a part of something. I was a number. And you
Yeah.
and it wasn't motivating for me anymore to just show up and be a number, and that's why I really believe, I didn't know that until we had that last conversation. I didn't know that your last business that you exited was a community-based platform. And it's so crazy because that is what's truly connected to what JobTread will become, because it's so focused on this, like that. There's that friends post that you guys created, your social team
Yeah.
created. Love that.
Yeah.
Like, love that. I love how it shows the progression of growth. But you can also, if you look deeper at that, you can see the energy, right? And the culture that's being built inside of that community. And that same energy extends into the contractors that use the product. So you're doing a great job of doing what you've already done with the previous business that you sold.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think you're so right though. Like, so many people don't realize, like, the difference between somebody being, okay or good at something and someone being great is, like, having that true understanding of what they're doing.
Hmm.
There's so many different marketing companies out there that have no clue anything about construction or remodeling or whatever it may be, and like yet they're like somehow getting hired by these contractors who think that they're just going to magically be able to like figure out the difference between selling a product on a shelf at a store and selling in a local market where like you got to compete against everybody else who's looking for that same local service. Like there's so many nuances with bookkeeping. Like if your bookkeeper doesn't understand construction, then like you probably need to find a different bookkeeper. Like it's those details that really I think set a good partner, set a good coach, set a good whatever it may be apart from everyone else, because like there's tons of different people who could help you in this world, but like do they really understand what you're doing? And to do that, like they have to have that experience working with a lot of other types that are similar to you, with the similar challenges, with the similar problems, like that they have already delivered and figured out those solutions. Like that can really take like it can help you go from good to great by like being able to tap into that experience. And I think a lot of people don't make sure that they find those qualified people who have the right experience, and that truly can set you apart.
Yeah, like we talked about that other gentleman that has 130 some Google reviews. I mean, we've done a lot of work together, him and I. We've done a lot of work together, and I believe like my in the industry, my skill and ability is sales. I believe that if you put me in a room with 100 other contractors and there was one job on the table, I'm walking out with the job. I don't care. Like, because my family deserves it. You know what I mean? And that's my mindset. I am just so hungry for what I deserve. And what we teach the people that we work with is like, you need to find what is your thirst, what is your hunger, so that you can approach things methodically. There is a framework to the sales process in construction that that lives organically first and foremost before you start investing in any ads. And then when you invest in ads, there's also a different framework and a strategy that has to exist. And I think, people that are making decisions and going with somebody off of Fiverr or off of whatever, just just blindly picking somebody without understanding, is a part of the process, unfortunately, because you have to fail a little bit. And so you just want to make better decisions along the way and try to find people that align, but get very, very good at removing people that are wasting your bandwidth, because if you just invest in time, energy, and resource with somebody, even though they're not serving the value that they need, you're still just going to stay in the same spot, and so I think a lot of people just need to recognize that there are specific people for specific tasks, identify what you need to do, find the right person, dig into it. If it's not working, move forward with something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, as we wrap here, like what advice, what do you wish, more construction business owners like understood about success and how to achieve it? Like what advice would you give them?
Well, I mean, there's success and failure. Those are the two pillars that live in this entrepreneurial journey. I've had both of them. And I can tell you one is prettier than the other. And so connected to um success is action in people that will help you grow. Connected to failure is sometimes the wrong people and a lack of action. And so my recommendation to everyone is to get out of your head and just take action. We're entering, I don't know when is this going to be aired?
Don't know quite yet.
Okay. Well, wherever we're being aired, if we're in 2026 or wherever you may be, I just highly encourage you to do something. Whatever you're doing before is gotten you to there, but it won't get you to the next phase. And go listen to Atomic Habits, go read the book. 1% of improvement every day, stacked, compounded over time, will create success. It's impossible for nothing to come from that.
Awesome, man. Look, Brandon, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all this insight. Again, it's been really awesome getting to know you over the last however long it's been, and just seeing your your passion, your devotion to helping others, the community that you've built. I mean, again, $49 a month, it's a no-brainer to just go get involved and be able to soak up all of this wisdom that you and the rest of your group is sharing out there. I mean, it's been really awesome, man. And again, I love that you wear your heart on your sleeve. You're very passionate about what you're doing and helping others. It's just very, very clear, so I think that's awesome. How can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
You can just go hit me up on Instagram at @the_contractor coach, or go to ebsworks.com. When you get to the site, you'll see that there are try it free buttons. And so they're a big red button. Can't miss them. You click the button and then you'll get 3 options. And so the options that exist are you can opt right into the program for $49 a month, which will get you into our community, or you can go click the try it for free, which is a calendar link. It will show the free calls that are available that week or that month. You just register, show up. Okay. That's the only thing that we ask is you show up. If you register, show up. And then the third option is there's a one-on-one coaching option, which you can dig into as well, depending on who it is, whether it's me or one of the other coaches. There may be a bit of a wait list, but you can put yourself on a wait list and dig into that as well. But the easiest thing literally is to just show up and try. ebsworks.com.
Awesome. Look, Brandon, really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on today. Everyone, go check him out. Get in touch with Brandon. It can't hurt. $49. If you can't afford it, let me know, and I'll give you the $49. It's well worth your time to get to know these guys, learn how they can help you take your business to the next level. Thanks again, Brandon. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much, Eric.
All right, see ya. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Builder Stories. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained valuable insights that can help you in your journey along the way. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review. And as always, if you or someone you know has a story to share, please contact us at builderstories.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Eric Fortenberry, and remember, every builder has a unique story. Keep building yours.